Another one of those days, I have another question for Jehovah's Witness. Just see if they'll answer me. I wanna see how this goes. I think back, and a lot of other ex-Jehovah's Witnesses out here think back, and they wind up, everybody winds up with the same exact story about how we felt inside ourselves, inside our beings, when we still called ourselves a Jehovah's Witness. Most of the people that explain it, or that I've talked to, have explained it as pain. The organization is telling you to put on a new personality, but that personality they expect you to change is a physical personality. And so you wind up having a problem. You go to tell someone about it, and they'll tell you, well, you need to pray more, spend more time in service. There's always some silly thing. It never really addresses the state of mind or spirit. It's always what you're physically doing is the answer that they give you to repair how you're feeling inside as your spiritual and emotional well-being. It's always a physical answer. Pray more, do more field service, etc. And that leaves people with a lot of pain inside. Like I said, now, when something bad happens and the elders are involved, what's going on is the elders will tell people not to go to outside sources for help. Don't go to the authorities, don't go to outside counseling, all that, because it'll do more harm than good to you. And always remembering the reputation of the organization. Don't want people on the outside looking at Jehovah's Witnesses as people with problems. So you gotta make sure you don't let any of them know what's going on. And so they develop a fear of going to the authorities, because the consequences of doing that are the elders and upper people coming down on you for needing those kinds of things or going to those places. Now, the elders will explain to people that they are to look after a spiritual health of a congregation. Then why are they denying emotional and physical help? They don't have the sources inside the organization to provide those. You have to deal with it and talk to someone about it, and then you could come back and talk to the elders as far as your spiritual outlook. But they're not making the division. They want to control your emotional state and your psychological state, when they should only be concerned with your spiritual state. So they're putting themselves into a place that they don't belong. We're taught not to worry about our feelings, how you really feel. You're supposed to bury that pain and chalk it up to just a trial that you need to go to in the name of Jehovah. Burying your problems and burying your emotions bring on anxiety, depression, anger, and all kinds of things that make it worse and aggravate the situation instead of actually repairing it. Excuse me. And how does that make people in that organization happy people? You know, they always telling Jehovah's Witnesses are a happy people. We're joyous. We're this. We're that. And they keep telling you that. So you think you have to put on this show for everyone about how happy you are, but deep inside you're just busted and broken, and none of those concerns are ever addressed. And that's what drives a lot of people to suicide and no other option but to do what they do, and then to go to get the help, and then the elders are on you saying, oh well, you shouldn't have done that, we advised against it and you did it anyway. And then you get more guilt on top of the anxiety and depression and anger. They stack guilt on top of it, and it gets to be too much. So what is a person supposed to do? So when a person on the outside looks at the people inside the organization, and on the outside, they're all chocolate coated, so, and they got a little cherry on the top too, yeah. You go to the Kingdom Hall and everyone's smiling and acts so friendly and everything, and they go home and they cry. And they go see medical doctors because of the physical pain that they suffer, but they're not addressing the reason for this happening. Is the reason for the physical pain and the depression and all of that is because you're trying to have to bury all these things for the sake of the organization. You don't want people to know that people in the organization are suffering in any way. So you gotta swallow it, and they'll call it persecution. They'll call it all kinds of things instead of addressing the problems itself. Now, a lot of people choose to leave the organization because they just can't take the anxiety and the stress, and they fall away, they fade, or they disassociate themselves because this actually seems like the problem. They get that much. They can't go to the Kingdom Hall without having a panic attack. They can't sit through a meeting without feeling angry. And they just find they can't go anymore. And when they leave, then they find out, well, ooh, wow. It's like a 100-pound weight is lifted off of your shoulders, where you feel so much more relaxed and so much at ease. Even people that wind up with permanent emotional and psychological damage from all the things that the cult has taught them to how to behave and how to think. Even the people with permanent damage, even though they have to suffer through years and years and maybe forever with those after effects, they still will say that they're happier outside than they were in. Now, Jesus, he said that his load was light and his yoke was gentle. Now, if you're feeling so overwhelmed and anxious and angry and all of that while you're sitting in a Kingdom Hall, while you're trying to swallow it and put a fake little smile on your face to everyone else, if you're swallowing all that and everything, how happy of a people are you, really? So when they get out, they feel relieved. They're happier, every one of them, even if they, like I say, even if they have problems, will say they're happier out than they were in. So what does that say? Now, also another thing that I want to bring up, and this is the basis of the question that I have for any Jehovah's Witnesses that choose to watch my channel, and they do. They say they're Jehovah's Witnesses, and so I have another question to ask them. What about stumbling? What did Jesus say about stumbling in Matthew 18:6? What did he say? What about stumbling people? And whoever causes one of these ones who believes in me to be stumbled would be better to have a millstone tied around their neck and thrown into the deep ocean. Now, Jehovah's Witnesses don't really want to admit it, but how many people have you and the organization stumbled? Well, I have a pretty good idea because I've talked to many ex-Jehovah's Witnesses who, after leaving the organization, where they believed in God and had faith in God, by the time they left the organization, they were devoid of any faith in God whatsoever, and call themselves atheist. Some call themselves agnostic, but many of them are atheist. The faith that they had in God was totally destroyed by that organization, who was very unchristian and mean and uncaring, and, like I explained, don't care about your psychological and emotional well-being, but try to control it anyway when they shouldn't. But what about those people that their faith is destroyed? Huh? What are you going to say on your judgment day when you stand in front of your Creator and have to answer for how you lived your life, and the Creator asks you, what did you do to this person? What are you going to say? If you have any fear in God in you, you should be really afraid of that, because Matthew 18:6 just said how he feels about that. You should be afraid. Almost every one of you are guilty of that, in one way or the other, because you all play a part in it. You're all a part of the same organization that teaches the same thing, that does the same thing to person after person after person. And people have died. People have committed suicide. All kinds of terrible things have happened to the people that used to belong to your organization. People that are in your organization are feeling that right now, today, that their needs are not getting met, and they're denied the help that they need. And each and every Jehovah's Witness today is going to be held accountable for what they're doing to those people. So, Jehovah's Witnesses, what about stumbling other people? If it's not right, why is it done? Why, when people leave the Jehovah's Witness organization, have they lost faith completely in God because of you? Think about that. Think about how you're treating people and children, because there's a lot of children in there today, just like a lot of us were in there then, thinking, man, as soon as I'm old enough, I'm out of here. This is ridiculous. These people are not truthful, honest, and they're counting the days until they get old enough to leave. The percentage rate of children that leave the organization is real high, and it gets higher all the time. Your kingdom halls, they're practically empty. Why? Because you're stifling people and smothering people and stumbling people, and you're pushing them out any reason you can find to push them out, to get them out, and call them all apostate. Even if they've never even actually committed a sin according to your organization, even if they've never committed a sin that the elders could disfellowship them for, you still all call them apostates when they're gone. And you still won't talk to them. Yet if you walk up to a Jehovah's Witness these days and ask them, do they talk to people that are family members that decided not to be a Jehovah's Witness? They will tell someone right to their face that, oh no, we're kind to them. There's no reason why we wouldn't talk to them. What an outright lie. And liars are not going to inherit the kingdom of God. The governing body has said right on JW Broadcasting, and we know because a lot of us watch it to find out what kind of junk you're being taught. And they tell you, do not go on apostate sites. Do not comment on apostate sites. But here you are. Are you going back to your Kingdom Hall and saying, hey, I've been on apostate sites and I've been commenting on apostate sites? No. You keep it a secret. And see, that makes you a liar too, because you're not telling them what you're doing, and you think you're getting away with it. But you see, you're not. You're not getting away with it because the Kingdom Halls are consolidating. And even after consolidating, they're not full. 40 years ago, congregations were wall to wall. They had to set up extra chairs for the people that would show up that they didn't even have seats for. Rows and rows of people in the back that they put up temporary chairs for because there wasn't room in the rest of the Kingdom Hall for people to sit. Now look, you got more empty seats than there are people in them. Every single Kingdom Hall we see the inside of, every convention we see, over half the seats are empty. They had to build their own little assembly halls because they can't rent an auditorium or a stadium like they used to and fill it, because it only has like a quarter of the seats are filled. So they can't rent a big stadium, so they make a little convention center, have all the congregations to go to it, just so it looks to you like there's a lot of people there. And it keeps it in your head, oh yeah, there's many of us. There's 8 million of us on the planet. Yeah, well, I'm going to tell you a secret. About 40% of the people that are still sitting in your Kingdom Halls don't want to be there. The only reason they're there is because they have family members that haven't decided to leave yet. But pretty soon they're all going to leave. And you're not going to get any more people to join, because people are finding out exactly what that organization is made of. And if you were smart, you would get out too. The Jehovah's Witnesses and Jehovah's Witness apologists that come on these channels and leave comments say filthy, disgusting things. They say things that would get them disfellowshipped out of a congregation if they did belong to one, and if they did know what that congregant was doing on YouTube, they would be disfellowshipped too. And yet you have this superior attitude, like you're so self-righteous and you're the only one that's going to live in God's kingdom one day, and the only ones that are going to repopulate the earth in paradise and all this other stuff. What that is not even true. It's not even biblical. It's not even right. And Jehovah's Witnesses have no right to say that some people will not be in paradise or not, because it's not up to them, and that's blasphemy. If you don't know what that means, look it up. But me and a lot of other people are really sick about Jehovah's Witnesses and Jehovah's Witness apologists coming on these channels and saying how wonderful they are when we know the real facts. We've lived it, we've researched it, we've done all that. You're the one that hasn't. So go ahead, tell me about the stumbling. Are you responsible for that? Yeah, you are. And if you say you're not, you're lying. If you're on this channel and you leave comments, you're lying to your elders and your congregation. And you know what happens to liars? Look it up. Us out here are telling the truth. You guys are not. Because you guys take and swallow all that truth and refuse to look at it, refuse to research it, refuse to acknowledge it, refuse to change it. And you deny it all in front of everybody. And there's a lot of people that are catching on. And pretty soon you're not going to have anybody left that'll even ever talk to you guys. No baptisms, no nothing. It's all going to end. The tower's crumbling. Tower's leaning. Tower's ready to come down. It's a hateful organization that does terrible things to people. Emotional, physical, and psychological abuse. And the organization is doing that to every Jehovah's Witness that's a member today. And the best thing you can do is to leave, to get out of there. Run from the tower. Take a step back. Do some research. Investigate. Don't judge people. Don't be so self-superior that you look down on other people. It's not Christ-like. It's not. So, if you want to answer me about the stumbling, go ahead. But one day you're going to answer for it. I want to know how you're going to answer. Go ahead, tell me. What are you going to tell the Creator on Judgment Day when He asks how you lived your life? Are you going to be able to tell your Creator that you had no part in stumbling those people and wiping their faith right out of their body? Go ahead. I'm waiting. Talk to y'all later.